right, hi again. This is LinReg. I am sharing this freely. I would like people to be able to access this as long as, and you can share it as long as you are giving attribution to me and that you are not profiting by it. So I have a little more to show you with the math button, and I want to make sure that I've got as many positive, easy, helpful things out here on video before too much longer. I want to make certain everybody has that information. There's obviously more information that can be taught, but for the moment, I just want to make certain that we have the right, very easy information, okay? So, taking a look at math, we have talked about the information under the math drop-down. We've talked some about what's under the absolute value, or under num with the absolute value, and least common multiple, greatest common denominator or divisor. We talked about fractions, being able to mess with that. By the way, this fraction over here, it has the same information here. So if you forget that this is in the num drop down, you also have it in the fraction. So, I mean, it's not unusual for things to be more than one place. All right, so arrowing over to complex. This is actually not something we're going to use very much. I want to point out here again is absolute value. Real and imaginary, that's trying to figure out which part is what. If you have a complex number and you're not sure, you can figure that out using those two. Hopefully that is not the case. Everybody should hopefully know which one is which, particularly because one of them has an I attached to it. I do want to point out the conjugate though. If I have a conjugate, or I need a conjugate to something, and I maybe am not always 100% sure about what that should be. Let me go ahead and I'm going to say 3 plus or 3 minus 4i. And my second and right above my period there should give me my I. Close up those parentheses. So what I am expecting to have happen is I'm going to get a conjugate of 3 plus 4i. And there we go. So if you're kind of have a clue, but you're not 100% sure that you've got it right, this is a really good way to check it. I will add that everything that I'm showing you, while it's helpful, it's not easy to show your work this way. So you're probably going to want to at least work some of the stuff out on paper and then check your work, right? Or do the work and do the calculation and then make certain that you understand and document what's happening so that you can get full credit or partial credit if you make a mistake. So that is more of the math. Probability, that is all having to do with statistics and probability. I'm not going to chase that down. I don't think that it's particularly challenging. We can talk about it if you're interested. And again, fraction, those are the fractional options. Okay, a couple things I want to show you in case you're like freaking out in an exam, or you're freaking out because you've been away from math for a little while and you're trying to remember how to do something. There is a catalog of all of our options, okay? And I'm going to show you where that is, and I'll show you that it goes on. It's a really long list, and it covers everything. So there's going to be a lot of stuff in there that you're not going to need, but you can figure it out as you go. So let me quit out of here, and I'm going to go second, and on the 0, if you look above that 0, it says catalog. And here we have everything, right? It's got all kinds of stuff, right? We've got, there's some statistics stuff that just went by. You can turn on a clock. You can clear your lists, which I'm going to show you how to do here in a little bit. You've got trigonometric functions. We can do regressions. I want to show you how to do those once we have our, and this is actually one I want to turn on, make sure that it's on. So when we're doing the lists, I also want to show you how to do a regression. So I want to have my diagnostics on for this purposes. And I'm going to go ahead and click that and enter, and it says done. And I won't worry too much about it until I'll show you what that actually does here in a moment. Okay, so let's try some lists. And lists are really useful. You're able to go ahead and do things like figure out the relationship between stuff if you've got your data points, right? So let me go ahead and I'm going to point out some things. Your L1 on top of the 1 and L2 on top of 2 and so on up through 6. Those are your 6 lists that are available. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit second in 1. I don't know if I have anything. Yeah, I do actually have something in there. I'm going to clear that out. We can go ahead. Where am I here? Matrix. There we go. So here we go. If you take a look, the third button from the left and second one down, you if you click that, you should be able to access this stuff here. So your edit, we're gonna edit the lists. We can sort ascending, we can sort descending, we can clear the lists, and I'm gonna do that right now. And I have to select which lists I'm clearing. If I don't select, it basically defaults to everything. And it's going to have a problem because there's more than one. So we're going to go list 1. So I'm going to go second and 1, comma, second and 2. And keep doing that until I've got all my lists cleared. I got to put my comma there. Second, 4. And comma. And second, 6. All right, so we're going to clear that list. They're all cleared out now. So I know it says stat here on this button. It's actually really useful. It's less stat like statistics than you would normally think. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just go with the fact that that is a useful button, even though it seems like we probably wouldn't use it. I'm going to go ahead and edit, and I have options here for being able to put in my data. I've made up some data, and I'm going to go ahead and enter that. Oops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if I'm going to compare lists, I have to have the same number in those lists. So if I have 5 in one list and I want to compare it with the next list over, like in this case 1 and 2, if I want to compare those, I have to have 5 in there or in my second list, or it will give me an error. There's nothing. It's called a dimension mismatch, and it won't allow you, it won't give you any information. It just will just give you an error, and it will make you try to go back and fix whatever it is you're missing. So 5. All right, I'm going to do this so it's just a little bit off of if it, because I want to show the linear regression, and I want to show that you can have a linear regression and have it not be 100% perfect, but be considered good enough. Okay, so I've got my lists. My list 1 is my x's, my list 2 is my y's. I'm going to go ahead and go to stat, and we're going to go ahead and pick a linear regression, right? And I'm going to point out some of these we're not going to use, all right? Some of these truly are statistics, and you're not going to use them for this class. For our purposes, you can use the linear regression. That'll give us our mx plus b. You can have quadratic regression, cubic regression, QuartReg regression. So you've got up through the 4th power. And then you have the statistics version of linear regression, which sounds funny because it's actually the exact same information, but apparently statisticians don't like how mathematicians came up with the linear regression, so they decided they had to be special. So there's that. And honestly, you can use either one as long as you're aware that in this first case on number 4, you've got ax, so a is my slope. In this number 8 case, you've got the bx, that b is going to be your slope. You also have a natural log regression, an exponential regression. So there's a lot of stuff here. And as I say, a fair amount of it is not stuff we're going to need here, but I want to make sure that at least the linear regression is clear and we can see what's happening there. Okay, so my linear regression, and it's asking me what lists do I want to look at. So the first list, my x values, is list 1, and my second list is list 2. Now, if I had my values in another list, right, I could go second and then pick that other list. Okay, and for the purposes of just showing this, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So it says list 3. If I were to do something, I would say don't worry about it too much, but if I were to do something at this point, it would give me an error. Let me actually show you. Invalid dimension. And so it's a dimension mismatch. So I've got to go back to this, and now I can say list 2. All right. I could also, I'm going to go back into my stat, CALC, my linear regression. Oops. So instead of list 3, I want list 2. So second and 2. Frequency list. This might show up if you had a lot more data than what we're going to work with. We're not going to bother with that. Okay. And here you can choose to store your regression equation. All right. I'm going to say for the time being, it's not really necessary. Let's just go ahead and do the calculation, and then we can talk a little bit about what's going on. Okay, so I hit enter after I got that information. I went down to calculate, hit enter, and so it gives me my original formula, right? And now it's telling me what my A and my B are. So my y equals ax plus b. Well, my a in this case is going to be my slope. And because my number was not 100% perfect, right? My last digit was a little bit off of what it would have been if it was a perfectly straight line. It gives me a 1.98, which is very close to 2, which is what it would have been if it was exactly perfect. And now it's saying my y-intercept is 1.04. And if you take a look at this r, if you have r as a positive, then it's very, very close to being a perfect line when it's at 1, right? Or very close to 1. If you have a negative value, again, you've got it very, very close to a line, but it's going to be downhill as opposed to uphill. So let me go back into my lists, and I'm going to change that last one, and you'll be able to see how just that little bit will give us a change here. So instead of that 10.9, now I've got 11, which would be, this is now perfect. This is going to be a perfect line. And I'm going to go ahead, stat, calc, scroll down to LinReg, my linear regression. I could use either 4 or 8. Again, I don't care which one you want to use, but be aware of what it is you're actually learning about. And then I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to calculate. And you can see my A is 2, my y-intercept is a 1, and my line is perfect. It's a 1, both in the r and the r squared. So, and I realize this is getting long, so I'm going to stop at this point, but I hope that this is helpful to figure out. If you have data points, you can figure out what your slope is, you can figure out what your y-intercept is by using your linear regression.